Welcome to the Mindset Connection podcast, and thank you for tuning in for our 33rd episode. If you are new to us, we are your hosts, Jennifer Clearwaters and Cindy O'Connell. And in every episode, we are showcasing amazing people doing extraordinary things in the field of mental health and wellness. So we are beyond excited to introduce today's guest. Dr. Srini Pillay is here in person. We're not doing virtual this time. And we are going to jump right in. And thank you for being here. Thank you for giving us your time today.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yes.
Yeah, we are definitely excited. So this is a very long bio. So I'm just going to, I'm going to do key parts.
Hit key
and then
points.
as we talk,
Sure.
we'll, most of what you do, which is everything, which is why you wrote the book. All right. So he is the Chief Medical Officer and co-founder of Roulette, an AI-driven digital therapeutic company that enhances well-being and extends health span. The other things that he is a Harvard-trained psychiatrist and a brain researcher and a biotechnology consultant. He's widely recognized for his groundbreaking work in psychogenic longevity, the science of using mindset to improve health span and lifespan, something we all need.
Mm-hmm.
So he's also a world-renowned keynote speaker, lecturer, consultant, and author who combines head and heart, figuratively and literally, to guide personal growth, leadership development, and well-being. He spent time at a psychiatric residency at Harvard's McLean Hospital, which we will talk about also. He also has a private practice, and I think you are also an executive coach.
That's
Would
correct.
that be true?
Yes.
All right, so
We're
gonna
jumping
start
in. Mhm. Also, Dr. Pillay has a very good sense of humor, which
that's
we
for
all
sure.
need. We all need that. So let's talk about your wonderful book, Tinker, Dabble, Doodle, Try. And in that book, you stress informal learning. You know, and maybe we are hoping you could explain to our listeners what even is that, and like why is it so important as a theme within the book?
Well, in the brain, we have a rational part of the brain, which is what we use to execute actions, to think, to make decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And this is largely the prefrontal cortex and things it's connected to. But there's also another part of the brain, which is another kind of deep intelligence, that's the unfocused circuit.
Mm-hmm.
This circuit is called the default mode network, DMN. We used to think of it as the do mostly nothing network because it only comes on when you unfocus.
Right.
But this network is responsible for abstract thinking, for even retrieving memories that are even deeper, for complex thinking. So if you really want to activate all your intelligence, unfocus is really important.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why informal learning is important.
Mm-hmm. For someone who, we're in a society where we're so focused on do, and go. When you hear you need to unfocus, that almost sounds scary for people. So how do you do that? Like, what does that even mean?
Well, focus is great, and we all need that. But there are problems with focus. So one of the problems with focus is that if you focus too much on something, it can cause fatigue, brain fatigue.
Yes.
And so by the time you reach the end of the day, you're really tired.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing is if you focus too much in one spot, you're not able to connect points. And so we want to be able to connect things and become more creative.
Mm-hmm.
What the unfocused network does is when it comes on, we're able to be more creative, make more connections, and also be more productive.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people don't realize that.
Yeah.
So can you give us an example of like disconnecting? So kind of doing nothing, even though you have a focus.
Well, doodling, napping, 5 to 15 minutes of napping can give you 1 to 3 hours.
Can you actually fall asleep for 5 minutes?
I can, yeah.
You can.
And wake up and feel good?
Yeah, and feel good.
Ah.
Yeah.
Did you train yourself to do that?
Well, if you try to meditate, sometimes you fall asleep.
Yes,
For
that's true.
5 minutes.
Okay.
So yeah, napping, doodling, positive constructive daydreaming, which is essentially daydreaming, but you are doing something low key. So you're doing something like knitting or gardening or walking, and this can really turn on the creativity circuits in the brain.
So if I was gardening and I had my headphones in, I'm not doing creative daydreaming.
You could be if you let your mind wander.
Ah, okay.
And if you let your mind wander and you start thinking about joyful things like running with your dog through the woods or lying on a yacht, this can really help relax you.
Lying on a yacht.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
That's a
right?
good
Yeah.
idea. That sounds really good.
Yeah.
All right. So let's switch gears just a little bit. So let's talk about your time in brain research at Harvard. So what you were doing is you were directing the outpatient anxiety disorders program and the panic disorders research program at McLean Hospital. What were
Yeah.
your findings about for people suffering from these disorders? Because that seems to be very common.
Yes.
Well, one of the things is that medications can be really helpful, but you can also decrease anxiety by using cognitive techniques or delving into your psychology. So one kind of paradigm that I teach people is a mnemonic called CIRCA, which is CIRCA.
Mm-hmm.
The first C is chunking. When you break things down, it actually calms down the brain rather than getting up on a Monday morning and
Yes.
saying, I have 700,000 things I have to do.
Mm-hmm. Put the blinders on.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
The I is ignore mental chatter. And ignore mental chatter is basically mindfulness.
Mhm.
So you pay attention to your breath. And you, it's as simple as we talked about earlier. You know,
Yes.
just you sit in a chair and you pay attention to inhaling and exhaling. And this decreases activation in the amygdala, which is one of the anxiety centers in the brain.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's reality check, which is this too shall pass. You know, when horrible things happen, sometimes we're like, oh my God,
Yeah.
like this
How
is
am I going
terrible.
to get past this?
Right.
Yep.
Then there's control check, which is like the serenity prayer. And with control check, you're basically saying, what can I control?
Mm-hmm.
What can I not control? And I'm going to let go
I
of
have
that.
to let go.
You know, Lady Gaga was famous for her interview at Yale, when she said she suddenly realized that she didn't want to sing anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so people were like, you know, how can you not sing? And she said, well, because I have to like advertise perfumes and, you know, I have to work for other people. And I don't really like that.
Mm.
And so when she started to learn to say no, she started to feel much happier. So-
She learned boundaries,
Right.
which is what we talk about all the
Yeah.
time.
So and then the last A is attention shift, shifting your attention from the problem to the
Mhm.
solution.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just trying to get an idea. I mean, I'm like completely on board with all of that. That makes a lot of sense. So these people, were they taking medicine and doing this at the same time, or maybe some were just doing this? How did it work?
Some people were taking medicines and some people were not taking medicine.
Mhm.
Okay.
And some people, you know, I also do psychodynamic therapy. So some people wanted to really get into, like, you know, the nature of being human or the nature of their psychological lives. So I think for different people, there's no one size fits all.
Yes. Yes.
There definitely isn't.
Right, right. So you just have to, yeah. So what was the success rate with CIRCA?
So I didn't measure that specifically, but there are
Mm.
lots of studies that show that each of those steps is statistically significantly helpful. So I think, you know, there's a lot of research to back it up.
Right.
I think in my own practice, it's a combination of the relationship. I love all the people I see. And I truly believe that love is a healing modality.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
100%.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's someone who I know I'm not going to be able to love, I will refer them to someone else.
Interesting. So we were talking about this
We're not,
when
not
we,
everyone is for you,
Right.
right? Not
Yeah.
everyone is for
right,
everyone.
and we were talking about this when we first that you can
Right.
tell the energy of people, which is why we like to see the people in person,
person.
because we can just feel it, and we knew right away as soon as we met you,
Right.
we were like, oh yeah, this is going to be a great one.
Mm-hmm. You know, when we're talking about seeing people in practice, I know that one of the things that I really work on with people today, hot topic, is self-talk and how people are so critical to
Mhm.
themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that came up a lot in your book. So maybe you can talk about why self-talk is so critical to
Yeah.
achieving, you know, having a better life.
Well, what a lot of people don't realize is that self-talk can actually change the brain. This has been
Yes.
shown. So, for example, if you're feeling afraid or feeling jittery, if you say to yourself, I'm going to crush this, it's not as effective as saying, Srini, you're going to crush this. So
Mhm.
studies
Third
show
person.
that if you call yourself by name and you speak in the second or third person, you actually feel much better.
Yes.
So I mean, try it on right
Ethan
now.
Cross.
Yeah, yes,
Ethan
it-
Cross,
it-
chatter.
yeah,
Exactly.
exactly, right.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I
Yeah.
agree. I
Yeah.
practice that.
Yeah.
And I try to encourage other people to do
We
it.
talk about that a lot in
And
workshops
so often when
too.
people talk to themselves, they're talking to themselves in this very critical way.
Yes.
As if we're supposed to be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody's perfect.
Right.
So, you know, what if we actually gave ourselves some leeway for being human?
Mm-hmm.
You make mistakes and you learn from them. And I think having a growth mindset is really critical to being able to move through life. You know, I know a lot of people who are thinking about the changes with AI right now. and they're thinking, am I going to have a job? Do I really want to work for someone else?
Mm-hmm.
There's no right answer. The only answer is to act, to assess, and to keep changing.
Yeah.
And so I feel like having, and self-talk can be so helpful that way. Because if you're telling yourself it's okay to make a mistake, it's okay, you will recover faster. Studies show that people with growth mindsets are able to recover much faster than people who are perfectionists.
Exactly. Yeah. So how do you get someone who is very critical to make those steps? What would you tell them to do? Or try?
I think certain kinds of being critical are good, like for high-level performers, for example. They always want to be on top. They always want to win. There's nothing wrong with ambition, and there's nothing wrong. And I'm not saying we all have to go into this kind of love yourself. I don't actually know if you can love yourself, because it's kind of weird. Like if you look in the mirror and you're like, I love me, that's just strange.
People will feel silly doing that.
Yeah.
Yes.
I feel like it's more of a self-compassion. Like I have self-compassion
an
from
acceptance of you.
Yeah.
Well, once you realize that you actually are connected to every person in the world,
Yes.
like the three of us are connected, not just literally, but there's a consciousness that passes through your brain, my brain, in this room, through everyone who's listening to us. And that's a unified consciousness. I think that the highest form of self-love is realizing non-dualistic consciousness, and it's you can practice that with a martini. Or you can practice that with meditation, or you can practice that by hanging out with your friends.
Yes.
And you realize that whatever this is, it's not just a soft variable either. Studies show that social isolation actually increases the chances of mortality by 91%.
Yes, correct.
Close to smoking.
Yeah.
So if we recognize that our brains are connected, that our consciousness is connected, I think you don't even have to be philosophical about it. Just think about it. And because consciousness, in my opinion, is not just restricted to the brain. It's actually like you can see the moon, and it's hundreds of thousands of miles away. In my latest course, which is implementing the science behind the law of attraction, I make the point that if you realize that consciousness extends far out, you will connect to a much larger world, and you will realize that the moon that is hundreds of thousands of miles away is registering on your retina, and it's being interpreted by your brain. So the moon is already connected to your consciousness because vision is part of that.
Yeah.
There was a study done, it's a small sample size, but it was people in India and in France. And they were all connected to their computers, and they had things connected to their brain, EEG leads. Yeah. And what they found was that if they were not listening to each other and they couldn't see each other, they could still think of a word like hola. They were thinking of words in Spanish. And those words would get transmitted across the continent. Meaning, when you are thinking something, if you have the right channel, which in this case was the computer, somebody somewhere else in the world can tune into what you feel.
And listen to what you're...
Right.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because my son's a Marine. So when he was deployed in the Philippines, I would go out in the morning and see the stars and think, he sees the same stars at some point during the day.
Yes.
So that's that connection. So you're giving us so much in, what are we here, 15 minutes? And here's the thing that Jen and I always talk about. These are such great ideas. How do we get people to commit and to practice? Because everything is a practice.
Right. Well, oftentimes we'll get people that will come in and say, well, I tried that. It didn't work.
Right.
I tried meditation, didn't work for me. I tried tapping. I tried this. It doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
And we always try to let people know that you're not going to implement a new habit in the brain in one try. Usually not. Right. But how are we getting people to stick to it? That's the hardest part that we see.
Well, the first step, I think what the research has shown is that putting out fires is not the most effective way to problem solve. The research has shown that the step number one, this is Richard Boyatzis and his colleagues at Case Western, have shown that step number one is defining the ideal self and then letting that become your compass and your navigator. Most people go through life without defining their ideal selves. If I said to somebody, well, how much money do you want to be making? They're like, oh,
no,
I don't know, like a lot. Well,
right.
I mean, if you told your brain, take me to a lot, it's not going to take you anywhere. If you say, take me to Eatontown, New Jersey, it will take you to Eatontown, New Jersey. So you have to be specific. You have to give it information if you want it to help you. So exactly how much do you want? What kind of relationships do you want? What kind of happiness do you want to feel? I was this morning talking to a patient about this, and she was saying, we have so much. We just bought a $6 million house. We have a beautiful dog. And she said, but I just cannot appreciate the moment.
Yeah. I feel like I want more.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I said, well, there's nothing wrong with wanting more. But the question is, if you think about like how you want to be, like, can you be committed to this? And most people are not committed to their ideal self.
Yes.
They'd rather get up in the morning, go to work, put out fires. And, most of us have had some period of our lives where we've done that.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I can always improve in telling myself, like, what's my actual purpose in life? What makes me feel aligned? And what biotists and them found was that in the brain, if you don't have a clear understanding of your ideal self, the conflict center goes haywire.
Mm-hmm.
If on a day-to-day basis, it's like, you don't have time for your ideal self. So, you have to look after the kids, you have to make dinner, you have to do some work. It's like, there's no time to think about this. Well, what I do is I often give people an ideal self guide. So I've created a guide which allows them to actually go through the step-by-step. And then they say, wow. The very first thing they do is that at the end of it, I say, now take the whole summary, put it into ChatGPT, and ask ChatGPT to summarize you and draw a picture.
What you want.
Right. So that, you don't have to remember all 6 pages of your answers. But the very first thing that happens is it comes out with this LinkedIn profile. Like, I was just thinking when you were reading up my bio, I was like, is that really who I am? I'm not.
Did I do that?
We probably missed some things.
Yeah.
We missed a few
No, but
things.
I feel like our LinkedIn profiles are not who we are as people. Right?
No.
Like who we are. So everybody comes out with this very generic thing. You are a high achieving person who wants financial success and you want to be in great health. It's like, yeah, well, that is not, you're not honoring the uniqueness of your brain.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the uniqueness of your life.
Yeah.
So I say, go back and say, like, what do you really want? Like, what do you want to do with that money? Like, how do you want to enjoy it?
I feel like so many people would still look at you and go, I don't know.
Right.
They don't
I don't know.
Well,
they don't know.
And, well, if you don't know, it's kind of unfair to expect the brain to take you there.
Mhm.
Right.
Because you're
But
not
then you're stuck
allowing
in a
that.
loop then because, I feel like a lot of these people have a sense of unhappiness and they feel
Right.
unfulfilled, but they don't know what they want to do.
Well, the thing is, I don't think that knowing is necessary. Aristotle made a really interesting distinction. A lot of people have said, you have to find your why. You have to know what you're doing. But Aristotle said that actually purpose has to do with living in accordance with your highest virtues in nature. Once you know that you're in your frequency, you can draw a lot into your life. And then you start pursuing health and wealth and happiness to maintain what that is. But to come back to the origins of your question, which is like, how do we get people to commit? I feel like over the years I've tried many things. For very few people, it works if you make them accountable. But accountability is not really, it should not be a servile task. Accountability should be a form of self-love.
Yes.
Yes.
And I'll give you an example. I was
Yeah.
talking to my trainer the other day and I was like, I just don't have time to do 10,000 steps a day. And he was like, I was like, I'm already
You're
working
only
out.
doing a few things.
Right.
Come on, right?
And so, like, what I'm doing is I'm working out twice a week. I'm playing tennis. I can, a couple of days a week, maybe I have time to walk, but there's no time. And he goes, dude, you're going to literally age by like 20 years if you don't walk
do it.
and move. Like, this is not it's not a feasible lifestyle to be sitting in your chair and being on Zoom calls all day. And he said, but I know enough to know that I can't make you do that. My question is, do you care enough about your own body to want to be in better shape?
Exactly.
And I was like, yeah, I do care. So, and I said, so it works for me. When he confronts me in that
well,
way.
he gave you the facts, right?
Right.
This is what will happen to you if,
Right.
matter of factly,
Right.
this is what will happen if you don't do your steps.
Right.
Okay.
And so I said, well, okay, so next 2 weeks, that's going to be impossible because I already have everything scheduled, but I will put in step hours. And then for the 2 weeks after that, you have to honor them. Now, sometimes you get to the step hour and you're like, no, I'll just move that because I have to finish something else.
But you make it a priority.
But if you make it a priority, what I say is you've got to...
Yeah.
David Goggins.
There we go.
Your important goals...
Accountability mirror.
Yeah, I always tell people your important goals have to travel first class
Yes.
in your brain.
Yeah.
You have to give them priority.
Yeah.
You have to say, you're part of my first class cabin.
Exactly.
And you go to your first class cabin and you say, I want to, like, I do want to
Love
walk. I do want to be mobile. I do want to be able to, I do enjoy life. But like, why would you enjoy life and then simultaneously want to not take care of your body?
Well, because if you don't have your health, you don't have anything.
You don't.
That's it.
Right.
So after each Zoom call, why don't you just do a 10-minute walk?
Well, so I'll tell
Or
you
5.
what I've done, and this is, it takes a lot to like change.
We're gonna change it
yes.
Yeah, right.
today.
We're gonna give you some tips.
Open to it always.
All right.
No, so what I did was it was this weird idea that people who do Tai Chi are weird. I was just like, I don't like that flow. I don't like the rhythm. It's
Those
too
are some nice, easy movements.
right.
You could get a step or two in
I was
there
like,
doing
that was
that.
like a little too blissed out for me.
Okay.
But the other day, this ad caught my attention, and it was like, if you're not getting enough, I was like, maybe I'll just download the ad. And so now I can get up from my desk and move for like 15 minutes after that, and it's such a helpful thing. But I really think eventually it comes down to recognizing that it's something that I want. It's part of my ideal self. It should be traveling in the first class cabin, and I should cater to that goal.
Yes.
Exactly.
I think
And
if
now
you
you're
think of it,
approaching it with a beginner's mind.
right, and also with a little more, like, with the winter, I'm always like, oh no, it's going to be slippery outside, and I'm like, well, is any excuse a good enough excuse not to move?
Yeah.
There's no reason.
Okay, everyone hear that. There's
So,
no excuse.
We're gonna give you the 13-minute movement thing.
Movement thing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I would love that.
Yep.
Yeah. We'll pass that along.
Uh-huh.
So, switching gears just a little bit. So, you talk about the cog, the center of gravity in the book, and you also talk about the psychological cog. Can you explain what that is? Because I'm sure
Sure.
people are like saying, "What
Yeah.
is he talking about?"
So the default mode network in the brain is an important network because it actually codes for the autobiographical self. What that means is everything that you are, it puts together. So, like, we are all the things you read in my bio, but we're also the person who loves the smell of his grandmother and the person
Right.
who loves the taste of something on a fall day.
Mm-hmm.
And so once you put all these subtle sensations together, it's the unfocused network that does that work. The focused network, that's like calling out my credentials,
Mm-hmm.
I know deep down that's not who I am. So to have a center of gravity, you have to actually integrate the tangible and the intangible thing. And when you and so this network, this cog, psychological cog, is the default mode network. And if you just go focus, fatigue all day, you are not activating your center of gravity.
Mhm.
Focus, unfocus is the way in which we can activate that. And there are a lot of ways you can actually do that. We talked about this a little bit earlier, but besides napping and doodling, things like just going on a power walk can.
There you go.
Speak to
Hey.
yourself.
Right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, right. That can be super helpful.
Yes.
Engaging in possibility thinking
Yeah.
is the other thing. Sort of asking, not just like what is, but what could be. And I think people are so shut down often by social media or like, oh my God, I'm never going to catch up with this, or keeping up with the Joneses, that they often will just keep themselves in the small life. And I feel like if we figure out how to engage in a sense of possibility, you're actually activating that psychological center of gravity in the default mode network, and you're allowing it to do the important work of collating both the tangible and intangible aspects of who we are.
Mm-hmm.
I remember, for example, the first, so I like wearing jewelry, and I'm actually sort of understated of how I usually dress. I'm kind of over the top usually.
Well, we follow you on Instagram,
Right.
Yes, we
so
were going to
know.
ask you about your
Yeah,
fashion.
we're going to ask you about who
Yep.
your fashion consultant
Yep.
is.
Who
So I
inspires you.
just like clothing is sort of a fun thing. It's a
It
fun
is a
thing.
fun thing.
It is
Because
fun.
you get close to some aspect of yourself,
Yeah.
and you can also switch identities on a given day.
Mm-hmm.
So so there's a concept that I talk about in the book, which is psychological Halloweenism. And psychological Halloweenism is based on a study that showed that if you are trying to solve a creative problem, and you say I'm a rigid librarian, you are statistically significantly less able to do that
That's right.
than if you say I'm an eccentric poet.
Mm-hmm.
Same person, different identity. Now, we all think that identity is fixed, that we're only one thing. But clothing can really help you take on a completely different identity.
Oh, yeah.
So, for example, this season, for some reason, I love dressing up in bow ties and dressing up. And sometimes, I'll be going nowhere. I'll be staying at home, but I'll just dress up because I feel like it. And, there are other people dressing up is not their thing. They're like, I'd rather be in a T-shirt and jeans. But you can find other ways to challenge yourself. You can say, the self-network in the brain for most people is, most people say, well, I had my change period when I was an adolescent, then I became this one thing.
Right.
That's right.
No, but we're always evolving, and you're always becoming somebody else.
Right. And I think if you are committed to becoming, you engage the psychological center of gravity, because then you are not just, there's a guy named Dennis Noble who's a physiologist who designed one of the first cardiac cells, and he talks about the fact that genes play relatively a much less important role in our lives than we think. Like, everyone always thinks that their genes are their fate, but in reality, your cells instruct your genes about what to do. Your life instructs your genes about how to be. So if we can explore our possibilities more by engaging in possibility thinking, we activate the center of gravity that then allows us to be who we want to be. And sometimes, it's not easy to do that all the time. But I think the more we can challenge ourselves to be more of who we are, and once we really know, I remember watching this interview with Oprah once saying that actually life will show up for you once you show up to you.
She's a perfect example.
Yeah. She's a
perfect example.
Yeah.
You also use an example of Jonathan Waxman in the book.
Yeah. I think
Tell us a little bit about that, because I thought that
I wrote the book a while ago, but Jonathan Waxman was the chef.
Yes, the chef.
And his ability to be creative and make menus that other people didn't know existed.
And people were telling him no.
And he was like, no, I'm actually
I'm gonna do it anyway.
I'm gonna do my thing.
Yeah.
And so often I say to people, I just wrote a post for nothing on LinkedIn the other day. So I just felt inspired to share this with the world. And I said, the most important thing in life to recognize, I think early on as a therapist, you're wanting to provide answers. But really, I feel like I've shifted a little bit to wanting to provide the most valuable questions for people. Because when you answer your question with your autonomy, you are much more likely to get what you want.
Yes.
And like a lot of times successful people will say, well, do A, B, or C. Well, I can tell you, if you gave me every step of Steve Jobs' plan, I wouldn't be able to build Apple. Because there are so many intangibles that are involved. So I said, protect your autonomy, because for so many of us, and it's not that easy. You have to still obey societal rules to a certain extent. So you're always challenged to be fully who you are. But it's a great beacon to have for the rest of your life, to say, maybe like 2026, what I want to do is actually be much more of who I am.
Perfect timing for this.
Yes.
Because this will come out probably in January.
And
so
people
I'm
will
so
be
glad
hearing
that
that.
you said that.
That's
Yeah,
wonderful.
excellent.
Thank you. So let's talk about your company, Roulette. What is it? What do you do there? And then there was something when I was reading about your work about trying to convert the Bronx into a blue zone, which
That's
I
right,
thought, that's incredible. Let's talk about that.
Sure. So I co-founded Roulette with Patrick Candela. Patrick's the CEO and I'm the chief medical officer. Sometimes he calls me the chief marketing officer because as a startup, you have to do everything.
Yes.
So Roulette uses video therapeutics to help people. Essentially, what we've shown to date at our Mayo Clinic studies, that we were able to decrease anxiety, emotional distress, and improve focus. Now, each of those variables is connected to epigenetic changes, which means that the gene itself may not change, but molecules may attach to the gene that could lead to chronic disease. So our long-term goal is to provide something, parallel to mainstream medicine, where you can go in for a couple of minutes and switch your mindset. So it's mindset shifts on demand. And we've identified 9 mindsets that actually impact your ability to live healthily into old age and also impact how long you live. So for example, optimists have 11 to 15% longer lives than,
That makes sense.
which is kind of interesting, right? And focus is important to people with ADHD, which is not what this book is about. It's not saying go get ADHD. It's saying have cognitive rhythm, have focus and unfocus. But people with ADHD have twice the rate of death before the age of 46, which a lot of people don't recognize that focus is important. Then the other mindsets are confidence, awe, somatosensory, where you're in touch with your body, connected mindset, where you're connected to other people, autonomy, resilience, and empowerment.
Wow.
Now, for anyone listening to this, that's like a whole list of something, right? But the idea is, and we can definitely do, some kind of free subscription so people can get a taste of the platform to see if they want to enroll. But we essentially have deployed it to date in organizations that are using this because, sometimes on a Monday morning, you just get up on the wrong side of the bed.
Yes.
And it's downhill from the time you get up. Like I actually said yesterday, I had a dopamine hit because I got up in the morning and I thought it was Monday. And I had all these things to do, and I was like, "Wait a minute, it's Sunday!"
Right?
And I was like, it just changed everything. And I was like,
I have another day to do it.
Even if my day went downhill, it was going downhill from here.
Yeah.
So if you ask yourself, is there some way that I can actually? We can change our mindsets.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Like a mind left in default mode is meaning just left on its own will do its own thing. The mind is often geared to actually pay attention to the negative. In my first book, which is Life Unlocked, I talk about the fact that the brain is wired to look out to make sure you're
absolutely.
safe. Right. So it will naturally only look for negative things. And the problem with that, and in my course, Implementing the Science Behind the Law of Attraction, there are two things that I think connect to this book. One of them is that when you look at neurons themselves don't just go from A to B to C to D to complete a thought. Neurons obey the laws of quantum physics. They have microtubules within them that actually can fire, and nobody can tell why they're happening at the same time. So and cells themselves have agency. Like the heart starts to beat before the brain is fully developed at 28 days. So we have intelligence in our body that is beyond just this thinkingness.
Yes.
And we can activate this intelligence. So I feel like with Roulette, what I want to do, and we have a number of channels. We have nature-based imagery, we have fractal imagery, and we have geometric imagery. And each of those has a scientific basis so we design all of that using criteria where we know what characteristics of geometry impact the brain, what characteristics of fractals impact the brain. We know that the human body is curiously a lot like nature. A bronchi in your lungs are a lot branched like trees.
Right.
Neurons are similar. They're like lightning. So somehow the body seems to be made in the image of nature. And maintaining that fractality is important. And so fractal art, I think, is one of the ways that we hypothesize could actually change things for people. And so having 2 to 3 minutes of exposure to this is not just relaxing. It's actually, when you change your mindset, you are changing your body as well. A lot of people don't realize.
Absolutely.
So let me ask you this. Guess what, for cough medicines, guess what percentage of cough medicines effects are placebo? Like how much of it?
90.
A lot of it. Probably, 80, 90%.
That's why I don't take medicine.
You only have a little real active ingredient.
85% is placebo. So I'm doing a series on Instagram this week, which is Believing is Biology. That believing is really, it activates multiple neurochemical pathways that can help you stop your cough. When you look in the brain and you give someone a placebo cough medicine, it goes to the brainstem and suppresses it because you believe that the cough is going to stop. It's the same thing with saline injections for osteoarthritis. If you give someone an injection of something that's not an active compound, it takes away the knee pain for 6 months. But we don't, nobody sells believing.
I know.
And
I mean, and that's been going on for you, that research. Why doesn't anybody talk about it?
I really don't know.
Yeah,
seriously, because it works.
It works. So, it means that they won't sell the cough medicine.
Yeah.
Right.
So before we came on, you said you just created a musical.
I did.
We have to talk to it. Are you a musician?
Topic.
I am, yeah.
What do you play?
I play the piano and I studied music at school.
Of course you did.
But this was actually, it was a very tinker dabble doodle try kind of thing. But although there was a second part to your question that I'm not sure I answered.
About the Bronx Zoo.
Oh, yeah.
We can get back to that.
Right.
Yeah. Well, so related to
not
that.
the Bronx Zoo.
The blue zone.
So I am interested in health span and longevity, and I'm interested in helping people understand how changing their mindsets can help them live physically, in a healthier way and live potentially to an older age. So the Bronx Project, I just finished a white paper with a number of collaborators showing that our initial interventions, which were Blue Zones interventions, were able to improve the quality of lives in people. And the Bronx has such a high level of dementia that if we can actually make an impact there, we can scale that impact. So we are in the process of partnering with the Blue Zones to be able to even kick that a couple notches higher. And I hold programs in Palm Beach for in-person programs. We have, so the psychogenic longevity is moving in a number of different directions.
But so interesting.
I just want to bring it to people's attention that you don't only have to work with your body to protect your body. You working with the mind is as important.
So give us an example of something with someone who's, suffering, starting dementia and decline in that sense. What would be like the first thing that you might say to them?
Well, so in the Blue Zones, there's a Power 9, and there are a couple things like, so in the Blue Zones, what they found was people who live longer generally they are with their own tribe. So they're hanging out with people that they truly love.
That's the big thing.
They also 2 drinks a day.
Two alcoholic drinks?
Yes, two glasses of wine pretty much every evening.
Okay.
Regular downshifting, which is what that Unfocus is about.
Right.
Regular downshifting, so they come out of that. Having strong social connection.
Yeah.
They have a very strong plant-based diet, but not exclusively plant-based. And I think with all of these things, you've got to individualize them, right? But just what's amazing about it is that with lifestyle changes, you can live longer.
Right.
I wrote that post about why is it every time I go to Italy, I can eat whatever I want and I won't put on weight.
Yeah, right.
But you'll be walking a lot.
Yes, you'll be walking
to each restaurant.
Right.
But if I eat the same amount of pasta or bread, there's no way I'm not going to put on weight. So what's in the food?
What's in the food?
Yeah.
It's a whole nother,
it's the water.
It's a whole nother
It's the water and the wine.
Yes.
So we're going to talk about your musical, but as you're talking about this, I'm thinking that people with dementia, they kind of have lost their connection to other people, and that might be part of the reason that the decline goes down so quickly.
Yes.
So so the people around them need to, kind of like lift them up and connect with them again. But I think that's a big problem.
I think it is, and I actually think a lot of us rely on our sense of continuity and a sense of meaning. Now, what's good about many forms of dementia is that short-term memory is the first to go, but long-term memory is maintained.
Stays, yeah.
So if you play songs that people used to like and you see it light them up, then you're actually reactivating some sense of continuity with the past.
Yeah, like that documentary Alive Inside. Did you see it?
No.
It was all about that, bringing music into the nursing homes and working with the most critical dementia patients.
Right.
And as soon as they put on the music, you could just see they had all these receptors in the brain that were lighting up again. It's really good. I'll send it to you.
Yeah,
really
We have
good.
a lot of things for 13
A lot of
minutes.
things to give you.
So talk a little bit
Excellent.
about your musical.
So the musical happened because I realized, so what happened was, when I went to medical school, I stopped practicing as much. I used to play concert level piano. And then when I stopped practicing, I was like, I went back to the piano because I said, I have to go back to the piano. I went back and I was like, oh my God, I suck. I was like, this is terrible. So because I trained classically.
Remember, you don't talk to yourself that
That's
way.
right. You want to say that.
You say, Dr. Pillay.
Right.
You're a good pianist.
Right. I mean, my advice is one thing.
Carrying it through is
another. But
So
piano's hard. It is.
Well, so I thought, so it's not to feel so bad, I'm going to start learning jazz because jazz piano was not my thing. So I thought, I'll learn jazz piano.
You can be bad at that because it's new.
It's okay. So I did that, but I still couldn't stand that, and because that I was so slow. And so I said, you know what I'm going to do? The one thing that never leaves you is musical composition. So I said, I'm going to compose a musical, but I'm going to do it on my own terms. And my music teacher was very good, but extremely rigorous. So one day I was sitting at the piano, and his name's Donnie, and I was like, Donnie, I don't want to play the piano right now. I feel like singing. And he goes, well, what do you want to sing? I said, I think I have a musical in me and it needs to come out. And
all right.
Well, would you like to, well, why don't we sketch it? I said, I don't want to sketch anything out. I do enough of that in the rest of my life. The rest of my life is planned. I just want to sing. And he goes, well, what key do you want to sing in? I was like, I don't know. Can you just sit at the piano and follow me once I start singing? Because I don't want to be led by the plan. Sometimes you want to be led by the truth, by what is emergent.
Yep.
Led by the truth.
Let it come out.
And just let it come out. So I got up and started singing, and he looked at me and he was like, well, okay. And he started playing, and I just recorded it. And then I went on to the next song. And he was like, okay, like, what is this musical about? I was like, I have no idea. But something in my brain does. And I think that we have so much nonsense. The brain is like a nonsense generator. It makes up all kinds of false stories about who you are and what you want to do all the time.
Yep.
And so I ended up, by using this methodology, in a couple of months, I can over 50 songs. But just, and so one day on a long flight back from Singapore, I was like, well, let me see what I was actually singing about. So I put all these things together, found a couple of gaps, and then made it into the story that it now is. And I know nothing about, what to do with it now. It's called Dance of the Psyche. So it's connected.
Oh, I like that.
It's about a young man's coming of age. And half of the musical are the characters in his brain who are the dark and the light side. Because I wanted to demonstrate that for every human being, there's a shadow self.
Yes.
And then there's this clearer self. And so I wanted to take the character through when he became very sterile, his light side was dictating his whole life. But he realized that he hadn't integrated the dark side. So the dark side had lost the first fight. And then they started fighting. They started going to the gym to work out so they could come back and beat the light side. But at the end of the musical, I have them join and say, we are Michael. We're both him.
We're both here. Yeah.
And so to be able to represent the fact that the condition of being human is fraught with conflict. There's a lot of light that we have to remind ourselves to turn to, but there's also a lot of darkness that we live within us. And so to be able to put that in a kind of playful context with his relationships. And so half of the musical are the characters in his brain, the other half. And I just recently, I just sat with it, because when it was done, I was like, okay, I guess it's done.
Yeah, now what do I do?
Yeah, right. But I ended up connecting with some singers. I went into a studio in New York and we recorded medleys. And so now I'm putting them together and try to put it in a PowerPoint and show it to an investor and see if anybody thinks this should be a movie or a play.
Broadway show.
Yeah.
This is wonderful.
Great.
All right. So stay tuned, everybody.
Exactly. So we're getting towards the end. And so we have a couple of questions we ask everyone. I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
Yep.
How do you view failure?
It's just an event. It's an event from which you can grow so that you can figure out what your next great thing is.
Okay. So what are your 3 most important strengths? We know you have many.
I think I have a natural inclination to love. And I think I get most, the thing that I enjoy most is the process of loving. I think I have a pretty strong ability to forgive. I think both myself and others. And I think my openness to life, just open to whatever.
Yes.
All 3 of those were obvious.
Yes, 100%.
Today. All right, so then we have a couple of other questions that we're going to ask, which is from our book, The Elevation Principles. So is there something you want to change?
Just
it's
yes
a yes
or
or
no.
no.
Yes.
Okay. So what's holding you back?
Nothing. I'm about to change it.
Oh, we've never gotten that answer before.
We never had that answer.
Yes.
So what's
that's
one
good.
thing you can do to move yourself forward?
I think it's to finish my new website with my new branding and hand it over to the programmer and then make an announcement.
That sounds like it's more than one step, but
Yep.
Right.
very good.
But it's in progress. So, Dr. Pillay, before we end, if somebody's listening and they're going, oh, I really want to sign up at Roulette, or I just need to follow him, like, where can people find you? And I know they can find you in multiple places.
Well, you can find me at drsrinipillay.com. You can find me at nbgcorporate.com. If you're looking for someone for a corporate audience. You can also find me on Instagram at Dr. Srini Pillay. You can find me on Facebook, on Meta, at Dr. Srini Pillay. You can find me on LinkedIn at Dr. Srini Pillay. And I think my Twitter was hacked, so I think it's Srini Pillay MD, because the Dr. Srini Pillay.
Okay, we'll make sure we put them all in the show notes so that way people can reach out to you any way that they want to. Was there anything that we didn't get to that you feel like you wanted to share with us in this short time that we had?
No, I think we got through quite a lot.
Yeah,
we
If I
did.
to summarize what we got to, but what people could get, it is to vary your life so that you have enough unfocus, to work with your ideal self, to consider what's possible for you in the world, and to allow your physical and mental being to be one thing so that you can explore the mysteries of consciousness.
Well
Wonderful.
said.
Definitely.
Well said. So thank you all for tuning in to another wonderful episode. We were really, really happy that we got Dr. Pillay to come on today. So, and as always, Cindy has our final words of wisdom.
So remember to pause, breathe, and then respond, and to always do hard things.
Yes.
Thank you so much,
Thank you
Dr.
so
Pillay.
much.
Thanks
Thank
for
you,
having
Dr.
me. It's
Pillay.
lovely
Thank
talking
you.
to both of you.
Wonderful.